This is another paper that looks at rapid antigen testing, but instead of focusing on asymptomatic people, it looks at all people that had COVID positive tests on PCR, where they're trying to dissect the question of what are the conditions for a negative rapid antigen test and a positive reverse transcriptase PCR test. The rapid antigen tests they looked at were Flowflex and Biosensor, where they took samples for the rapid antigen test and then for the PCR in the same clinical encounter. And this study occurred from May 2022 to November 2022. So this is data within the same year as that asymptomatic study that was done in the Netherlands that we looked at previously. In this study, there were 3,500 individuals that were positive on PCR. They found that Flowflex consistently achieved higher sensitivity and specificity than Biosensor. And at least at this point in 2022, there is no significant differences in the rapid antigen tests performed between the Omicron sublineages BA.2, BA.5, and XBB.1. Additionally, in their study, the cycle threshold value was used as a proxy indicator of viral load. So typically you'll see a scale of something like 15 to 35, where 35 on the cycle threshold value would be closer to being cleared of the virus, and the lower value on the cycle threshold scale, the higher the viral load, which would typically be viewed as having a more severe disease state. And what they found is that for the 3,500 COVID positive tests on the PCR, about 3,000 of them were also positive on the rapid antigen testing, where both tests achieved an overall sensitivity of 85%. So that's their ability to pick up on the positive if it was indeed a positive. And the specificity was around 99.4%. That means that that's the likelihood of it only detecting COVID and not picking up on something else. Meaning that in 2022 it was very likely to pick up on the COVID positive, and then it was very likely to only detect the COVID as opposed to detecting something else and reading a false positive result. And out of the two rapid antigen tests, Flowflex had a higher sensitivity than Biosensor, having about an 86% sensitivity versus an 82% sensitivity. And for the cycle threshold value, when they plotted it versus the rat sensitivity, they found that the lower the cycle threshold value, the higher the sensitivity of the test, while the higher the cycle threshold value, the lower the sensitivity of the test. They also did the clever thing of plotting the rat sensitivity versus days between symptom onset and test date. And in 2022, if there was about 5 days between symptom onset, the start of symptoms, and then doing your test, you were able to pick up the COVID positive on the rapid antigen test with a high degree of accuracy. While if you waited beyond 6 days after symptom onset to get tested, then your sensitivity of being able to pick it up dropped dramatically. But it's more important to know now that in 2024, it's not necessarily a plateau and then a drop. It's more of a increase, plateau, drop, where symptoms are occurring with a lower viral load, so the lower test sensitivity, where the viral load is peaking between days 3 and 5 from our last known and available data. So it would look something like this. On the dot here, it would go up, it would plateau, it would go down. That's the general case scenario that's happening currently, which again really emphasizes the need for serial testing, repeat testing to make sure that you are indeed negative. So what I would do after you start feeling symptoms is that I would do a rapid test on day 1 of symptoms, day 3 of symptoms, and day 5 after symptoms start. This would give you a pretty good idea if you are going to test positive or not. Or after a known exposure event, I'd give it at least 24 hours to incubate, and then after that known exposure event, I'd test on essentially days 2, days 4, and then day 6 after your event. And then to help you find COVID tests that are free, you can go to my link tree, and then you can navigate through the different resources to help find those.